Hello and welcome to Maltbox, the non-chill filtered whisky blog. I'm Andy and this is Whisky Review 106. Now what I have for you today is a single malt Scotch whisky from a distillery located just outside of Glasgow. It comes in the form of this. The Auchentoshan American Oak single malt Scotch whisky. Now, this review is going to be the first of 3 reviews where I kind of go back to basics in a sense. And I say that, but what I mean by that is I'm exploring whiskies that I've not had for a few years. I'm exploring whiskies in some cases that I've not had since I started my whisky journey about 12 years ago. I wanted to revisit some of these whiskies to see how they've changed and how I've changed. I also wanted to revisit them because at the moment money is quite important. It's very, very tough out there. And these are all going to be whiskies that are pretty affordable, pretty accessible. This being a prime example of that. So, the Auchentoshan American Oak. In fact, there's the bottle, guys. I've pulled it out and I'm not showing it you. So there's the very sort of classic Auchentoshan bottle there. You can see, bottled at 40%. It is chill filtered. It does have added colouring, but you'll understand that when I tell you the price. This retails at full RRP, so full price. It's usually between 25 to 30, about £27.95 or something. However, you will find this on offer so regularly, both on shops such as Amazon and also on supermarket shelves such as Tesco and Asda, because they stock this. With that in mind, when this is on sale, it's normally about 20 quid. Okay, so £20. I picked this up for £20 on Amazon about a month ago. Alright, so already it's not natural presentation. Alright, so it's 40%, it's not non-chill filtered, so it is chill filtered. It's got colour in there. It's between 20 and 30 quid. This is not what some people would describe as being a prestige malt, alright? Now, I use the word prestige loosely because value is something quite hard to determine in whisky, to be honest with you. Let's put it this way, expensive does not necessarily mean good. I've tried £40 whiskies, in some cases £30 whiskies, that have been better than some £120, £150 whiskies that I've tried, genuinely. Because it's all up to personal preference and what you enjoy. So the American Oak, I mean there's the colour. I'm not going to dwell on it too long because it's fake, so it doesn't really matter. Some nice legs on the glass though, to be fair. You see them going down there. Now this has been matured in first fill ex-bourbon casks, which is a plus for me because I like ex-bourbon maturation. I like bourbon, I like ex-bourbon. Ex-bourbon for me gives that nice clean character. It allows the base spirit, the distillery character to show through a bit more. Sherry and wine, etc. tends to mask some of those, and it also can mask some imperfections, which can be quite quirky, quite entertaining, quite educational. That's why I like ex-bourbon casks. So, on the nose. This quite pleasant vanilla, which isn't a huge surprise given the maturation method and also the distillery character. I tend to find that Auchentoshan carries quite a bit of vanilla in it. There's citrus in there, think sort of like lemon, coconut, a little bit of milk chocolate as well. It's quite sweet, quite spicy, and I don't like to use this word, but it's quite smooth, it's quite mellow. Now Auchentoshan, quite famously, is a distillery, a Scottish distillery that utilises triple distillation, hence the picture of the 3 stills at the bottom there, and that's something they're quite proud of, because most Scotch whisky is 2 double distillation, or 2 point something, depending on the distillery and their production method. So, with that triple distillation, you are going to get smoother characteristics. It's what a lot of Irish whiskey is done. A lot of that is triple distilled as well. Not all of it. There's a lot of pot still whiskey out there, and as I touched on in the Waterford review, the Irish whiskey scene is on course for some great things. Now, before I move on to the palate, you can find this whiskey like Amazon, Tesco, Asda, and the specialist retailers. Okay, this is not a small release. This is a big release. Auchentoshan is quite a big distillery. It's owned by a big company. They need to cater to the mass audience. This is not a whiskey, and this is something to bear in mind straight away. This is not a whiskey aimed at people that have been drinking whiskey for 20 years or something and drink exclusively, say, Lafroig, or, you know, maybe they're big Macallan fans, for example. This is something for the populace. This is a whiskey that is there on the shelf. It's there to draw your eye to it, both in terms of its packaging and price. On the palate, quite a good mouthfeel. It's quite malty. It then gets quite creamy. It then hits you with that vanilla again. What I find in Auchentoshan, which is at its core as well here, is kind of a nuttiness, a really nice nuttiness. And again, that chocolate, that milk chocolate's come through from the nose. You could argue, combine those two things and you've got Nutella. A bit of spice, a bit of warmth going into the finish. Not quite as much citrus on the palate. The finish, pretty long, warming. What I would say about this whiskey, all right, I did say that I bought this about, well, did I say? I can't remember. I bought this about 4 weeks ago. Okay, so my wife and I have made a bit of a dent in it. It needs that air. I've had 2 or 3 bottles of this over the last few years. It needs that air. This has got so much better in the last 3 weeks. This isn't a particularly good whiskey when you open it straight away. It's quite astringent, it's quite raw. You can tell that it's quite young. After all, it is a no-age statement whiskey. There is likely to be something like maybe 5 or 6-year-old whiskey in this release. So it's quite young, you know. And, you know, that's something to bear in mind. Whiskies do change over time. A little bit of air in the bottle does wonders. Same as airing it out in the glass or adding water in the glass. So overall, this is, to be honest, a nice whiskey. I wouldn't say it's my favourite whiskey in the world. I'm not saying it's going to blow me away. It probably won't blow you away. But for 20 quid, I personally quite enjoy it. What I've actually been using a lot of this in is whiskey cocktails. I like a highball. It's pretty good in that. It's actually been quite good as a bourbon replacement for a couple of old fashions that I've been using and experimenting with. It's quite nice, quite spicy. It's got that sweetness in there that bourbon carries as well. And on that subject, I'm not going to go on for much longer, don't worry. Don't be afraid of experimenting with whiskey. There's nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing wrong. I love whiskey cocktails. I put mixes in. I've said a highball, that's just whiskey and ginger ale. I love that stuff. Mix it with Coke. Do not let anybody tell you how to drink your whiskey. Never. If somebody says to you, don't put that malt in a cocktail, you're wasting a single malt, don't mix it with Coke, don't do this, just tell them to shut up. Have a word. It's your whiskey. How you enjoy it is entirely up to you. I do not sit here for hours every night drinking whiskey in these glasses, for example. The majority of my whiskey experiences are generally quite approachable, easy drinking drams, such as this, when I've had either a long day at work, or like today, I've done a lot of DIY today. As you can tell, if you've watched before, I'm back in the basement. It's been decorated, it's so close, but I can't sit behind all the whiskey that's on the shelves yet because the furniture's not arrived. And I just want to switch off. I don't use these glasses. I use a rocks glass, a tumbler, and I just sit there with it. I don't have to think too much about it. I just enjoy it. That's my time. So never let anybody tell you how to drink your whiskey. Swirl it, put ice in it, put water in it, put Coke in it, put lemonade, it doesn't matter. However you want to drink it, do it. And breathe. So, with that in mind, a good, valuable option. It's affordable, it's accessible, it's approachable. What's not to like? Thank you very much for watching, guys. See you soon.